First of all, I want to say the timing of this book is perfect for two reasons. One is, from a selfish standpoint, it deals with specifically some ways that salespeople can break through some of the noise. It is a very noisy world that we live in. I think you would all agree. We have text messages, we have emails, we have more text messages, phone calls. We are constantly bombarded with information. You get on social media, you've got several social media outlets, things that you're seeing, reading, and hopefully populating. But it's a very noisy world. We'll take a look at the state of the union in the 21st century. What's going on out there? What are some of the things that are happening as it applies to sales? What's happening with the prospects? What's happening with the salespeople? What's happening with the business owners? Those are unique and individual things that we need to address. There's a lot of frustration out there. We'll look briefly at that. Frustration on the business owner's standpoint, as well as frustration on the salesperson's view and their experience on an everyday basis. And then we'll talk a little bit about overcoming some obstacles. Let's first look at some of these things that we need to address. One of the things that I have experienced in my work with small businesses and even large businesses is a whole different issue, but small and medium-sized businesses is there's really not a lot of, and this is an overgeneralization, but a direction and guidance. I think there's really an opportunity to provide some small and medium-sized businesses with some structure, some advice, some guidance. Because think about this, the small business owners, typically they were engineers, different backgrounds, maybe accounting folks. I know a number of accounting folks that have come through the organization and they've started their own business around an accounting practice. That usually starts with one person. And then they get to the next step and they say, you know what, this is going pretty good. And I need to slow down a little bit because I'm spending way too much time in this business. I got no personal life, so I'm going to hire a salesperson. Couple issues. But the point is that, again, an overgeneralization. What I have found is most individuals that start their own companies have not worked in a formal sales role. They've been great developers, they've been great builders, they've been IT people, but they've never really gone out and sold in an environment where that was their sole role. It brings me to my second point, sales meetings in the small and medium-sized business environment. Again, an overgeneralization, but I've seen it happen. If they have a sales meeting, either with one salesperson or a group of salesperson, it's usually the business owner that's having that sales meeting, as they call it. They may be having it once a week, once a month, once a quarter, once a year. I hope it's a little more regular than once a year. But my point is that when they get the salesperson or people together, one of the things that business owner does know, that if I get a lot of prospects in front of a lot of prospects and everybody knows the whole funnel routine, you load more in the top and eventually stuff's going to fall out of the bottom. Well, if you load a lot of things in the top, you'll get more to fall out the bottom, right? Makes sense. It's the law of large numbers. But what they do is they get together with the salespeople and they say, all right, what are you doing, Tom? What have you sold this week? Okay, well, I sold this and I'm pretty close on this and I got this working and I'm hoping to close this business by that week and this and that. And then they say, okay, and Susan, what do you have going on? Well, I've got this going on. I closed that account, $10,000 last week. We're coming into the holiday season, so people are starting to go a little quiet on me. Having trouble getting people to return my call. Victor, what do you have going on? Okay, I got this going on. All right, well, good. All right, folks, well, that's good. But you know what? Our revenue numbers aren't where they need to be. We're behind plan. If they have a plan, we're behind plan. I need more revenue. Got to keep this company. I got to pay for all your people, all your expenses, and all the overhead in the business. We need to make more sales calls. So here's your direction till we get together again. Go out and make more sales calls. Okay, law of large numbers. That's his direction. That's how he says, let's get this done. I disagree with that. Because what happens is, if you're not, and I'm not saying they're not making effective sales calls, but if they're not making the most effective sales calls and using their time most effectively, engaging with the prospects, you can make 25, 30 more sales calls a week, and all you're going to do is make more sales calls. You're going to go through expense from them driving to those sales calls, taking people to lunch, taking them to golf, which is very expensive if they do that. And God forbid they're flying in a plane, because that's a lot of expense, and you're not increasing your revenue in most cases. I contend, let's work on making those sales calls more effective. In fact, let's even make less sales calls. Let's make better sales calls, more targeted, more focused, and identify those individuals that are at any chance on the face of this earth that they'll do business with you. Because salespeople never want to give up on an opportunity. They'll make sales calls on somebody until the day they die, because they don't ever want to give up on the opportunity that maybe they'll buy something from me. So we need to look at what we're doing as a sales organization and who we're calling on. So I contend that we have better sales meetings, more effective sales meetings. We'll talk a little bit about coaching and how you go about that. Okay, look at the good old days. The good old days. I'm an old guy. I don't feel old. I feel about 30, but I'm about ready to go into my 60s, and I certainly don't feel like that. But my point is that I grew up in the age of there were no cell phones, there were no emails, there was the best that you could get something there tomorrow was the best you could get it there, not while we're on the phone, is through FedEx. Very expensive. So it better have been important to send it FedEx. But I grew up in the age of when you need to call in and check on messages or call a company, you called a company. You talk to an individual 110% of the time. You engaged with a human being. Not today. You call an organization and you get an introductory voicemail. And then by the time you get to choice 15, you still haven't found what you're looking for. So you hit 0, and that's not an option. And it says, thank you very much, call back. That's part of the frustration, and how do we deal with that? A lot of people just keep banging their heads against the wall. I just keep leaving voicemails, just keep sending emails, and I hope somebody calls me back someday. But there's a way to get around that, and I think my appreciation for the good old days feeds into how we go about that. B2B, business to business, and B2C, business to consumer, business to customer, shopping. How are we shopping today? I don't even need to address the B2C environment, because we all go online. We don't go to any other resource. When we want to find something, see what Best Buy's got, see we're shopping online. There is no real other option unless you really have a lot of time on your hands and you just go to the store and browse, go to town center and browse through the stores. But we go online, and there's some statistics on that. But what I want to take a look at is the B2C environment. I just want to point a couple things out here. Some statistics that came out. And I just want to point your attention to the 9 out of 10 in the upper left-hand corner, third row over. It's customer, and I know you can't read this, so I'll read it for you, and that's going to be a stretch. But online buyers make for an effective, their experience online is not effective. 9 out of 10 buyers say that their experience online in buying business to business is not effective. So that has to do with your website presence, your online presence, the information that they're looking for, it's not there. It's basically a yellow pages book ad on their website, name, address, phone number, directions, that's it. And then maybe some other information, but it's not as effective as it could be. The other one I want to draw to your attention to is 82% of business decision makers thinks that sales reps are unprepared. 82%? And that's your job? You're unprepared. How can that be? It's because we're told to go out and make more sales calls. More sales calls, more sales calls, more sales calls. And there's a whole other lot of issues which we'll touch on. And certainly the book touches on how can we be better, more effective, better prepared, more engaging, and use our prospects' time much more valuable. It's valuable. It's extremely valuable. If you've ever sat in front of a business owner or been around a business owner or a large corporate person, it's very valuable. They're in meetings all the time. They're not getting their real job done. They're in meetings, which creates more work. I don't know about you, but every time I go into a meeting, I come out of it with a to-do list. Well, that was fun, but it's good. I mean, I got things to accomplish, things to do. So some statistics, and I'd be happy to share some of these with you, and again, the sources of these statistics. We talked a little bit about frustration early on. There's some frustration. There's frustration on both sides. There's frustration on the salesperson's side, and believe me, I see it all the time. I get frustrated sometimes. Right, Tom? You've seen me. You get frustrated. But I let it roll off of me, but it's still there. But there are some that I've met, some sales folks that I've met, they're very frustrated. And we'll take a look at why they're frustrated. But they're extremely frustrated, and that's just tough on them. I mean, when you're making phone calls all day or trying to get in front of people, and is anybody out there? You got to wonder sometimes, has this person died and not changed their voicemail message? It's like it goes in and you just never get a response. So there's a lot of frustration on salespeople. And what it leads to in some cases is they quit. They're gone. It's not good for the business owner. They just invested all this and they just had a person leave. And we'll talk a little bit about the right person for that particular job. Because a salesperson is not necessarily a great salesperson, even if they were great in their prior experience in their prior company. They're not necessarily great if they go to another company, same product, another company, or a different product, same size. There's a lot of factors in there, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Management wants results. I don't have to tell you that. More revenue, more revenue, more revenue. We got to grow. If you're a public company, it's even worse because you got the boards of directors and the shareholders on your back. If you don't grow this company, you're gone, Mr. CEO, and you want to see some things happen when that conversation occurs. I've seen it happen coming in the big corporate world, sat in those meetings, and when the CEO is not happy, no one's happy. So there's some obstacles, and I want to share this with you first. Just a little bit to think about. Obstacles can't stop you. Problems can't stop you. Most of all, other people can't stop you. The only one who stops you is yourself. It's your persistence. It's the way you're going about things. Don't keep banging your head against the wall because the wall is an obstacle. Figure out how to go around it.